room. It is my understanding that you are prepared at this time to present the memorial to our dearly departed brethren. Is that correct? We are yours, brother.
John Weitkamp, alumnus. John Weitkamp, Alaska Statewide Alumni Chapter. Good afternoon, my brothers, sisters, and siblings. Today we are here because our fraternity has sustained great loss with the loss of many of our brothers, sisters, and siblings during this last biennium. The number is so large that I do not even have time to give you their names verbally in the time that is allotted to us. But you will see their names as they scroll down on the screen. Leslie?
In our hearts we'll always cherish memories of thee. For our love will never perish till eternity. True to thee, Phi Alpha Delta.
At this time, I would ask Sister Nicole Human and sibling Michael Lucier to please come forward.
Nicole Human, Watson Junior Chapter, Knoxville Alumni Chapter. I have scratch paper that I'm reading from, so I'm going to look down and talk a little bit about Sister Vivian Wyndham. She was a first-year law student in Knoxville, Tennessee. When she unexpectedly passed away, she had had some health problems leaving behind her teenage son. She was a member of the Bellevue University Pre-Law Chapter, a very active member of Watson Junior, and when I first met her at an open house for Lincoln Memorial University, that was kind of what bonded us. I was Vice Justice at the time, and my Justice Aubrey Maples. We were non-traditional students. We met her, and just like everything else, it was P.A.D, and we were best friends from the start. She also led, in her short time with us, a lunch and learn program. She was an advocate for human rights issues and Native American law, and that was held nationally. She worked for Big Fire Law in Nebraska, which is her home state. She also won the Watson Junior Chapter Award for Courage. She started the National Lawyers Guild Chapter at Lincoln Memorial University. And most importantly, a couple of personal notes. She was a professional football player, and she also was a domestic violence survivor and advocate. And that was one of the reasons that she came to our law school, is that she really wanted to help those who were also suffering. And I'm going to let Michael speak. I don't know much. It was a sudden loss. But she was a great sister, and in her honor, we did start, Aubrey and myself started a grant. It's a Vivian Wyndham grant. I'm not sure at this time if it's going to continue, but Brother Joshua Fields came on that grant in memory of her because she was a huge, huge P.A.D fan. Lead, purple, and gold, I would say. So I will yield the floor to Brother Michael.
Michael Lucier, Watson Junior Chapter. Phi Alpha Delta's sister Vivian was truly family to her. When I first met Vivian, she exemplified every value of service and compassion. She would give you a shirt on her back. She'd take you out to lunch if you were feeling lonely. She was truly an amazing person. Sister Vivian was the first friend I met as I went out at LMU. And as an individual that convinced me to join P.A.D. and convinced me to join and dedicate myself to service to the fraternity and our members. It is in her honor that I am here, that I do most things I do for our fraternity, even with KSC. It's because of her that I have dedicated myself so much. And I thank y'all for allowing me to speak on this.
Thank you, Sister Nicole, and sibling Michael, very much. Leslie?
At thy shrine we'll worship ever, sons of P.A.D.
Would Sister Shelley Weinstein please come forward to say some words about our departed sister?
Good afternoon, brothers, sisters, and siblings. Shelley Weinstein, past International Justice, McCormick Chapter. My sister Marie Blackston, who at the time was Marie Wiggins, grew up in Bono, South Carolina. I never heard of it. When Marie was born, there were approximately 400 people living in this very small community, which is located just south of Myrtle Beach. So that'll give you a little bit of perspective. She attended the College of Charleston and law school at the University of South Carolina, where she would fondly chide our California brothers and sisters was the real USC. Marie was a proud member of the Charles Picnic chapter, serving as its rush chairperson for almost the entire time that she was there. During that time, the chapter increased its membership from approximately 19 students to well over 100. Marie attended her first convention in 1984 as the Pinckney chapter delegate. Apologize. She was a very close friend of mine. It's very difficult to speak about her. After graduation, and partially due to the successes that she had had at Pinckney chapter, Marie traveled to California to her office, which was then located in Granada Hills. And she began to serve as what was then known as the International Field Representative. That position was a traveling field secretary who would go to our various chapters throughout the fraternity and help them with programming, with membership, with brushing, whatever we could do to support these chapters. And she did very well in helping the chapters, increasing the chapters, memberships, and things of that sort. A year later, Marie transitioned to the pre-law program and became the pre-law director. And she was utilizing the skills that she had acquired as a field rep to help with the pre-law chapters. The following year, after she was the pre-law director, Marie returned to South Carolina and married her college sweetheart, Mary Blackston. But she wasn't done with P.A.D. yet. Many of our P.A.D. brothers and sisters traveled to Charleston for the wedding. And in true P.A.D. tradition, we were pretty much up all night before the wedding. And even the night of the wedding, we were up so late that Barry and Marie overslept and almost missed the flight to their honeymoon. For the next 5 years, Marie was residing in South Carolina with Barry, but was continuing to work for P.A.D. as the pre-law director still. Then, in January of 1995, she actually returned to Granada Hills to become the executive director of P.A.D. She was the first woman to serve in that position. Her husband, Barry, however, stayed back in Greenville, South Carolina, as he was completing medical school. Marie instituted many changes in the fraternity, which are still relevant and present today. The most important contribution, I think, during her tenure was the transition of the fraternity moving from Granada Hills to finding a new home. Marie was shepherding the search, we did a nationwide search at that time, to find a new home for P.A.D., a place to move, and also a place to buy our home, because we had previously been renting. After Barry finished medical school, Marie supported him as he opened his new practice. And she returned home and worked alongside him as his office manager. She was very organized and very bossy, two qualities that many office managers that I have known possess. From the time that Marie returned to Greenville until her untimely death, she continued to work with Barry in his office. She also volunteered with a number of philanthropic and political organizations. And believe it or not too surprising for those who know Marie, she actually did some public relations for a Telemundo soap opera. That was so Marie. Those are the P.A.D. facts and figures about Marie. But that's not why she was so special to me and why I'm here speaking to you about her. She was short of stature, which fooled many people, but she had a sharp wit and an even sharper tongue. Although a true Southern belle, she was no shrinking violet, and she was not afraid to speak her mind to whoever would listen to her, and even those who did not care to listen to her. She was a prankster before it was fashionable, and boy, was she ever funny. I think I laughed more with Marie than I've ever laughed with anybody else, and you would just keep laughing, even though it hurt to laugh. She was just that hilarious, and especially so after she'd had a few cocktails. Marie Blackston was a classic example of how membership and participation in P.A.D. can shape and enhance someone's life. Under the tutelage of other more seasoned P.A.D.s, most notably Fred and John Weitkamp and Cliff Schechter, Marie matured and blossomed. In particular, I believe Marie found in Fred Weitkamp a mentor from whom she learned so very much about life and also about P.A.D. That is truly the essence of P.A.D. Members helping other members, being there in good times and in bad times for all of our brothers, sisters, and siblings. As you look around you, you will see members who return year after year after year. We come to meet new delegates, law students, pre-law students, and other alumni. But we also come to see the people that we have known for so many years, that have become like our second family. It is truly something that Marie would be the first one to encourage you to take advantage of all that P.A.D. has to offer in terms of professional as well as personal growth. She was, after all, the beneficiary of what P.A.D. offered. Definitely was not the same young woman who I first met when she came to California to be a field rep. Marie was a woman ahead of her time. She recognized the benefits of electronic communication in the early 1990s, long before it became commonplace. In 1996, long before Zoom became a noun, she coordinated a virtual program via satellite under the auspices of the P.A.D. Public Service Center. This webinar, as it is now been called, featured Sister Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Can you imagine how weird it felt in the 1990s to be participating in a conference and communicating with people who are in different places? It was very innovative. There are many stories about Marie, which I could tell you, but as Brother B.J. Maley reminded me, she probably would not want me to share them. Just know that she loved life and lived every moment to the fullest. In the end, and beginning with her membership in the beginning chapter, to her efforts with her law students, to her efforts as a field rep and as a pre-law director, and then finally as executive director for the fraternity as a whole, Marie has left a mark on P.A.D. forever. Rest in peace, my sister.
Thank you, Sister Shelley. And as a side note, I had the honor and privilege of having Sister Shelley as a student when I was District 3 Justice in Southern California 4 years ago than any of you care about.
As we fight for fame and glory on life's battlefield, may thy name, Phi Alpha Delta, be our sword and shield.
Brother Stuart Nakbar, please come forward and provide some insights. Stuart M. Nakbar, Christian C. Chapter, past Associate District Justice, past District Justice, New Jersey Alumni Chapter. Brothers and sisters and siblings, I would like to thank International Justice John Miguel, the International Board, and the International Chapter assembled here today for the opportunity to speak about our dear departed sister. Before I commence my remarks, I request that the following people join me here. Past International Justice, Clifford Schechter. Current International Justice, John Miguel. Past International Justice, Kathleen Kitty Maloney. District Justice, Tad Bister. District Justice, Edward Anderson. District Justice Jen Rimer as proxy for past International Chief Tribune, Melissa Dewey. Brother Glenn Milburn, District Justice.
The reason I have requested each of these people to join me is simple. Many of you are first or second time attendees at convention. Each of these people assembled here with me knew, loved our dear departed sister, and it is my sincere hope that their words when spoken will convey the sense of who Sister Allison was and what she meant to each and every one of us. It is with a heavy heart to announce that our Sister Allison Bloom died peacefully at her home, December 29th, 2021. Sister Allison was born in New York City in 1968. She and her family lived in New York until high school when they moved to Connecticut. She graduated from Fairfield University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in History and Political Science. She went on to receive her Juris Doctor from Quinnipiac College School of Law in 1994. While in law school, she joined the William O. Douglas chapter of Phi Alpha Delta. Sister Allison served as chapter clerk, and for her remarkable service, she was awarded the Frank E. Gray Outstanding Clerk Award. She was the founding Vice Justice of the Hudson Valley Alumni Chapter. In 1995, after serving as District 20 Liaison, Allison became District 20 Justice, where she mentored many future Phi Alpha Delta leaders. In 2002, she was awarded the Stan Jones Outstanding District Justice Award. After stepping down as District Justice in 2002, she went on to serve as trustee of the P.A.D. International Foundation. Most recently, she served on the 2020 Nominations Committee and as an alumni advisor to the White Chapter. Outside of Phi Alpha Delta, Sister Allison had one other primary passion: emergency medicine. Over her 2+ decade career, Allison was able to combine her two passions in life: law and emergency medical services. She devoted her private practice to serving, educating, mentoring, and representing members of the EMS community. Allison served on the board of directors of the National EMS Management Association and was a fellow in the American College of Paramedic Executives. In July 2020, she co-founded the Cambridge Consulting Group, serving as general counsel to better serve the EMS community on a national level. Allison was a featured instructor and speaker at EMS training seminars and conferences across the nation. An avid writer, she authored numerous articles on EMT liability and the application of Fair Labor Standards Act to EMS agencies. She was a certified emergency medical technician, and trust me when I say this, she was extremely proud of this certification and the work she did outside of the fraternity. As I stated before, each of the people here with me had the pleasure of serving, knowing, and loving Allison. I'm going to ask each of them to say a word, a phrase, or a sentence or two about our dear sister. I first call upon our International Justice, John Miguel.
Thank you, brother. Allison Bloom's smile. One of the first things I remember when meeting her. Warm, enveloping, welcoming, and it didn't stop. And for every year I got to know her, it seemed like that smile got better, bigger, brighter. And I got the opportunity to speak to her when she visited Denver for a professional event. And we were reconnecting about how to get her involved in P.A.D. And I can't believe she's gone. I can't believe that smile is not here for you all to see. If you close your eyes, I think you can.
I call upon District Justice Tad Bister.
Sister Allison was one of the most passionate people that I knew. She She was a classmate. She was my chapter clerk. She was my DJ. She was my business partner. And she was one of my dearest friends. Everything she did, she gave 110% or more. You heard about her involvement with EMS. When we were in practice, there was no such thing at that time as EMS law. That didn't stop Allison. She created EMS law, and she became the expert at it. And that's the way Allison lived her life. You know, when she was my clerk, I was honored to be able to nominate her for the Frankie Gray Award, which of course she won and certainly deserved. And your dear sister and dear friend, you will be missed.
I call upon District Justice Jen Rimer as proxy for past International Chief Tribune Melissa Dewey.
I had the privilege of knowing Sister Allison, but not nearly as well as Melissa Dewey. Lost her very dear friend. She asked that I pass along to you this word about her dear friend. Protect her.
I call upon District Justice Glenn Milgram.
Allison was extremely special to all of us. Allison, although she came to P.A.D. long after I did, she was my mentor. She was a leader. And she was also an award winner of the Milgram Family Service Grant for first responders. She epitomized what that grant was about, and she epitomized P.A.D. And we all miss her, and may her memory be a blessing.
I call upon past International Justice Kathleen Kitty Malone.
She was a friend, she was my DJ, she was a kindred spirit, and most importantly, she was a champion for P.A.D and every student. Her tenacity, her enthusiasm, and she could be pretty much a really good nagger. It's part of the reason I was here and I got involved. The love she had for this organization. Was with her to her very last day. She was so hoping she would get better and be able to be here. And in many ways she is. I wrote the chapter just as key. She gave me. I finished my term at Kennedy chapter. So, she's always with me.
Lastly, I call upon past International Justice Clifford Schechter.
Tough act to follow. And when you speak last in a situation like this, you're often left to say, well, what else is there to say? But the truth is, with respect to Allison, there's always something to say. And whether it's passion, compassion, integrity, courage, sincerity, she was beloved. And the takeaway that I have for you about Allison goes to the theme of the convention as set forth by our international justice. Service to the fraternity. It was never about Allison. It was always about you, the student. It was never about Allison. It was always about the fraternity. It was never about Allison. It was always about what we could do for our law schools and our communities. In her memory, each one of us should take it upon ourselves and continue that flame of her life back with us to our chapters, to our law schools, to our communities, and continue that motto of service. There was none better, and we all so deeply miss her, personally, professionally, and most importantly, fraternally. May her memory be a blessing.
For once past international justice, I get the last word. Sister Allison and I were known in this fraternity as frickin' frat. Where one was, the other one was not far away, or at least in eye or earshot. We would constantly travel to each other's district conferences to help out or just visit and lend moral support. We would be called upon by the international office to go to various districts that did not have a district justice at the time to hold and run a district conference. To us, it was just an excuse to talk on the phone and get to see each other. When on the phone, we would rough out the agenda and basically do the rest of the stuff off the cuff, as we knew what each other would say, even without spelling it out. When we weren't doing fraternity business, we would get together to assist each other with trial and complicated case prep when same could not be done over the phone. The only compensation would be dinner, cold soda, maybe a scotch, and of course a hug. I remember when Allison was set to get married, she requested that I perform all the Jewish rituals under the wedding canopy to bless her union with Alan. As some of you may know, in October of 2009, I suffered 2 strokes within weeks of each other. As I had my phone with me, I called my wife, who after getting over the initial shock and getting to the hospital and seeing me, said she would call the family. I looked at my phone, and there was a person's name who I could not recall in my emergency contacts. The name was Allison. I called the number and said the following: if you are a special person to me as I believe you are, please tell me who you are. Allison basically said, okay, Stu, what's the joke? I explained to her what had taken place and that I unfortunately had no clue who she was. I told her if she did not believe me, she could call Michelle, believing that this person, if in my emergency contacts, would have her number. Not 5 minutes later, the phone rang and it was Allison again. She was crying. She had spoken to Michelle, who explained about the strokes and how I had lost a great deal of my memory. For the next 25 months, Allison would call me at least once a week or email me pictures and stories of who I was, what we were, and made numerous attempts to try and jog back the memories. For 25 months, we did not see each other, but we became even closer, reliving those times as if it was just happening. When I finally did see her, it was because my brother had passed away and she came to pay a condolence call. She walked into my house in a gray dress and I looked at her and said with confidence, "This is my sister Allison," to all who were with me. From what I was told after we hugged, Allison went to the kitchen to find my wife, Michelle, cried in her arms, saying, "He knows who I am. He remembers me." Sister Allison literally dragged me to International Convention 4 years ago, as I would not have been able to make the trip mentally alone. Even with it being Sister Past Justice, International Justice Maloney's convention, and she wound up turning over the gavel to Brother Past International Justice Jason Ross, who was my initiate, and whom I pushed and guided in the fraternity with Allison's help. Sister Allison was truly dedicated P.A.D member. She will be missed, but her legacy will not be forgotten. While she was at the William O. Douglas chapter, she and Brother Tad Bisker, who was the justice of the chapter, at that time made sure to wear their P.A.D pins every day. Back in those days, the pin was round. It was a round pin that never had a beginning and never had an end. Just as our fraternity endures today, our fraternity, which began from the legal controversy in 1897, was just the formation of the circle. We have gone on from the days of Lambda Epsilon to the 1902 Articles of Southaven, to the famous meeting in Chicago, to the inclusion of Phi Delta Delta in 1972, and the activation of chapters outside our United States borders. We continue on, never waning or relaxing the founding principles of integrity, compassion, courage, and professional service. There will be no end. And although our pin is no longer round, we forever keep going. I raise this point to you because Allison truly believed in the principles that we were founded on, and she always proudly wore her pin. As I joined the fraternity at the same time as her, albeit 750 miles west over in Lansing, Michigan, I too had one of those round pins, and I still have one on my lapel to this day. Sister Allison wore her pin with pride and as a means of subtle recruiting, as people would see it and ask what it was about, and she'd be able to get to extol the wonderful attributes of Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity International and what it meant to her as a family. I call upon International Justice John Miguel to join me. Brother International Justice, I hereby give you a round fraternal pin. I request that you please give same to the International Secretary or Marshal who keeps our official roll. When our dear sister is removed from the roll as proper, I request that this pin be placed by her name forever, as she will always be in this fraternity's collective heart and in mine. I request those assembled up here with me extinguish your candles of light and remembrance, though her light will never go out in our collective hearts. Rest in fraternal peace, Sister Allison, and I thank you all for your courtesies and attention.
I spoke with Sister Allison a week before she passed. She was weak physically, but strong in spirit. She wouldn't give up. She never gave up. Indomitable spirit. Thank you, Brothers Dew, and to our brothers and sisters who shared a little bit about our sister. Bless them.
Phi Alpha Delta, may we always be at thy shrine we'll worship.
The last of our brothers and sisters to be recognized today is Brother James Edmondson Freeman. I had the honor and privilege of knowing the conductor of fun. A little bit more about that later. Jim was a member of Beaumont chapter and served as its vice justice during some very active years. Upon graduation from Beaumont chapter, our brother and Brother Joe Rippinger, also of Beaumont chapter, were appointed executive secretaries and served the fraternity for 2 years each, traveling to our law school chapters, helping them and revitalizing them. Their first assignments took place before they even had moved to Granada Hills, which then was where the headquarters for the fraternity had been for some 47 years. In August 1974, Brother Freeman found himself in Toronto, Canada for the 40th Biennial Convention, and he and Brother Rippinger helped the executive office staff put on that convention. Then on to the 2 years of travel, and he did a great job for us. So great that, in fact, when his term was over, he stayed on for another 2 years as our Director of Field Operations. He worked with the new executive secretary, he worked with our office staff, and with almost all of our law school chapters. Did a phenomenal job. Then he was cut loose into the real world. Unfortunately, he ran afoul of the California State Bar, which he was never able to pass. So it was career change time for our brother, who reinvented himself and entered into the entertainment industry. He relocated to Whidbey Island in Washington and lived in a caboose. All the while, he remained committed to Phi Alpha Delta, maintaining relationships with many of our members. He was active with the Seattle Alumni Chapter and was later appointed District 1 Justice and served in that capacity from 1992 to 1998. Brother Jim was a true brother and possessed a heart of gold. He was always there for his sisters and brothers, even when called in for services out of the ordinary, such as in 1984, when he ventured south to Hollywood, California, to serve as the DJ at the wedding of Brother Karen and myself. Nice tux, red high top, tennis shoes, always the conductor of fun. Thank you.
Sons of P.A.D. As the closely clinging ivy twines about the tree, so will we, Phi Alpha Delta, ever cling to thee.
While we realize that no expression of sorrow or of grief can undo the inevitable work of death, while we acknowledge the feebleness of anything we can say to alleviate a pain that only time can solve. And while it is true that the life of our fraternity will go on no matter who we may lose, it is fitting and proper that we should pause to pay our last tribute to those who in life were joined to us in Phi Alpha Delta. I am now about to order that the seat of our deceased member be removed from its place, not again to be used until some new member shall come into our fraternity, as sooner or later, all of our places will be taken by those who succeed us. While this is being done, let us all silently contemplate the contributions of our deceased sisters, siblings, and brothers to our fraternity and to our lives. Will all members please stand? The International Secretary will note on the permanent roll of the records of Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity International the deaths of our dearly departed members. My sisters, siblings, and brothers, please be seated. Now let us proceed with the work of our fraternity as it must be carried on no matter what losses we may suffer and what lives may be taken from us. We are all part of a great stream that flows onward through the years towards a common end. During the brief sojourn of our existence, we can so fashion our lives that not even the obscurity of the future can erase our memory from the hearts and minds of those that have come to know us. Here today, we strike off from the roll of the living the names of our departed members of our fraternity. But what they have done as members of this fraternity, not even time itself can strike from the memory of the living. Our works will pass, even as we will pass. There lives only the Spirit. But in the spirit of this fraternity, the contributions of fraternal service and loyalty of our departed members will live on after we who are now here are gone. And now let us remember that work still remains to be done and resolve to build to the memory of all deceased members a fitting memorial, a living fraternity which never dies. Phi Alpha Delta. Let us go about the work of our fraternity.